Governor Youngkin, your transgender model policies require that students play on the sports teams and use the restrooms that correspond with their sex assigned at birth. Look at me. I am a transgender man. Do you really think that the girls in my high school would feel comfortable sharing a restroom with me?
That is an awesome question for Glenn Youngkin. And Glenn Youngkin, he's one of the Republicans that will pass a bunch of barbaric legislation, but wants the image of being a little bit more reasonable, still possessing some of the compassion that Republicans would frequently pretend that they have back in the day. So he might actually engage with it rather than just being insulted by someone like Ron DeSantis or something like that. So here is his response to that amazing question.
I believe first, when parents are engaged with their children, then you can make good decisions together. And I met your dad, and I'm glad that you're both here together. That's really, really important. I also think that there are lots of students involved in this decision. And what's most important is that we try very hard to accommodate students. That's why I have said many, many times, we just need extra bathrooms in schools. We need gender neutral bathrooms, and so people can use a bathroom that they in fact are comfortable with. I think sports are very clear, and I don't think it's controversial. I don't think that biological boys should be playing sports with biological girls. There's been decades of efforts in order to gain opportunities for women in sports, and it's just not fair. And I think that's non-controversial and something that I think is pretty well understood. Again, I think these are very difficult discussions, and I am very, very glad to see you and your dad here together.
Very, very glad, and please don't ask me any more questions because I'm getting a little bit tired from dodging this much. He talked about the topic, I'll give him that. He kept saying words, so he did do that. He did not directly answer the very pointed, awesome, and very direct question. He said other stuff. And he didn't even keep his response to stuff about bathrooms or whatever. He eventually just went to sports. You were asked a specific question. Do you think that girls would be comfortable with that? I mean, after all, your whole thing, the reason that people like Glenn Youngkin and all these Republicans are making all of these changes is to protect innocence and make sure the girls don't feel bad and blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, now here's a direct question. Let's put you to the test. Is that actually your priority? And he moves to other stuff. He did it again, like I said earlier, in a way that seems more compassionate than like a Ron DeSantis or a Trump. I mean, God only knows what they would have said had they been asked those questions. But he didn't actually address the actual question, and he definitely seemed inconvenienced by it. It's a weird thing when you see a Republican being forced to think about for even a second that trans men exist. Because they don't often do that. For a group that talks about transgender people 8 to 10 hours a day on average for any one of their pundits, they pretty much just focus on transgender females. So anyway, Brett, what do you think?
He's talking about high school sports, but he sounded like a geometry teacher with all those obtuse angles. That's most of the discourse on transgender bathrooms, athletics, existence is the dumbest, fakest interactions you will see in the entire world. It is so stupid. Like, no one actually wants to have a real conversation about it. They just want to have a politically expedient conversation of it. The fact, like, all of these disagreements from Republicans seem to have something to do with whether you're going to have sex that you don't want to have in a bathroom. Most people don't want to have sex in a bathroom. There's poop there. It's not a sexy place. Also, separating genders in the bathroom does not guarantee people won't have sex in those bathrooms because gay people exist. So what are we talking about? The idea of more bathrooms, I'm actually fine with that. Go have bathrooms. Like, I just don't want people to feel uncomfortable in the bathroom. Meanwhile, we've been forcing people to shower together for millennia. No one actually gives a crap about making everybody comfortable in a bathroom, in a high school locker room. It's all fake. It's all stupid. They don't want to prioritize, and the reasonable people should be prioritizing just doing stuff that makes sense. But that's not what Glenn Youngkin wants to do. That's one of the more reasonable discourses I've seen on the transgender issue from crazy town right wingers who include Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, who are basically like, trans people don't exist. At least Youngkin's saying like they do exist. But it is insane to me that this discourse on a daily basis comes back to people who talk about the sanctity of women's sports. Yeah. Right wingers on freaking Barstool who always talk crap about women's sports and how it shouldn't exist in the first place because people don't care about it. They themselves argue they don't care about it, but when it comes to whether protecting the sanctity of like this 5th grade swim meet, they're like, I need to see your junk. Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. The challenge would be cover one story about high school women's sports that does not involve you attacking a person who's trans. Like, just cover one thing. You don't care about it. You don't care about it. And with the bathroom thing, again, as we're not doing a full-on fact check again, we've done it a million times. The arguments that this is necessary because people are being attacked in the bathroom is just not true. It's just not actually happening. And to the extent that people are getting attacked in bathrooms, it's trans people. It's not cis people. But it's pointless to try to get them to accept that. They just will not accept that. It doesn't happen. It's not a crisis that needs to be fixed with legislation in states across the country in the same way that trans people winning all high school sports is not a thing that actually happens. There are, I don't even know how many tens of thousands, millions of high school athletes there are, and they can name like one trans athlete in one sport, in one school, in one state. Well, then obviously the law needs to change everywhere in the country. But the issue that we have is, it's all well and good to point out that Ron DeSantis knows that this isn't actually the problem that he's saying that it is, or Glenn Youngkin doesn't. Most people, when you ask them to evaluate how much of a thing there is, it is maddening how bad they are at it. I just saw a poll from YouGov. Maybe when I come back, we'll do it because this applies to all groups, but I'm gonna focus on the response for the trans community. When you ask them, what percentage of Americans are trans? Do you know what they say? They say 20%. It's 1%. They are off by 20 times. So the idea that like, oh my God, the bathrooms are all being invaded and the teams are, well, yeah, if you believe that 1 out of 5 people are trans, then you might be able to convince yourself that this is at least theoretically a thing that could be a problem. But that's the sort of lie that's being propagated, that like these are huge communities making big changes. They're the ones coming at us. We have to do something about it. And it's all fake.
Like
super fast forward.
And why does the footing have to be one of conflict? This should just be something like, let's figure it out. But it's something of conflict. And obvious, like if anyone's been to like a high school sport event, the parents are the worst. They want to pull the kids off the court and play themselves and punch out every other parent. So there's a reason that this has been locked onto, and it's just political expedience. It doesn't affect y'all's life in any way whatsoever. Just calm down, take a breath. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, we're gonna make that mind your own business hat one of these days. Okay, really fast. Let's jump into. Before we do, we're gonna do a full thing on this, but it doesn't matter what group you talk about. If these are like minority groups or small groups in society, wild overestimations of how many there are. They're asked, what percentage of Americans are Muslim? They say 27%. It's 1%.
It's a phenomenon.
27 times. What percentage are Jewish? 30%, they say. It's 2%. What percentage live in California? 32%. You think a third of the country lives in California? Are you mad? Yes, they are mad. They think 33% of the country are declared atheists. They think 29% of the country is Asian. They think 41% of the country is black. When you add up black, Asian, throw in one more group, do they think there are no white people in America? No, people are just terrible at estimating threats. And they always overestimate. There are evolutionary reasons why we overestimate threats, because the people who overestimate threats are more likely to survive than those that underestimate it. But it's just crazy how bad we are at math.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.